Well, let's hop in. It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Always nice to have a good chat, to meet cool people. You've been doing this a while, I see. Many podcasts, so it's pretty
Yes,
impressive.
yes, yeah, absolutely. It's been fun. I I started out in jazz radio and branched out into a myriad of other avenues, and I absolutely love it. So I think in this world that we're living in, especially in America, we're radiating so many levels of divisiveness. I think for all of us to come together and celebrate what we're doing is probably pretty important right now.
True. Yeah, a little less division, a little more unity, I
Uh-huh.
think would be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
So
for
let's
sure.
let's hop into your work, and I want to begin with the question I always ask up front. This pandemic happened 6 years ago, was raging. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach work today?
Yeah, I notice you always ask that question, and I haven't answered it, but can I ask you a question in response, which is, what is driving that question? Why is that important to you?
I
Because we are 6 years on, and you're still, but you're curious about it. Why is that?
I try to put this to rest many times, and it seems like once I put it out there, there's more than 90% of the people that are like, I can't believe that we haven't talked about it. No one talks about it. This is wonderful. I really want to get into it. And I think it was a huge U-turn for people. Now, for me, I was doing more interviews than I ever did before.
Mm.
That was a big flashpoint for me to be like, what am I doing? How am I going to get through this era? And doing interviews was huge. And there were so many things that were happening at that time that have drastically changed since. And I think that we all kind of came to a crossroads and came to a fork in the road. What are we going to do with this other half of our lives, especially for us that are older?
It was a very unique, obviously, point in time, and for many people, massively disruptive in both negative and positive ways. And I agree with what you said. I think it obviously there was a bunch of negative stuff that came from it, which we all know about. But I think the positive, for many, myself included, was that it was a disruption of the pattern, right? And it kind of mirrors in lots of ways some of the work that I do on an individual level. But for us, it was an opportunity, or we were forced in many ways to step back and consciously examine what was probably otherwise largely unconscious, right? We were just sort of going about our business. We were doing, going about our lives, doing whatever we were normally doing. And for some people, they've been doing that for years, decades, right? Over an entire career. But I think when the pandemic hit, it really caused us to step back and ask, what am I doing? And am I doing this for the right reason? And is this what I should be doing? And could I be doing something else that would be more fulfilling? Those kinds of questions. And I don't think everyone asked those questions, but the opportunity was definitely there, right? If you didn't sort of take that opportunity to self-reflect, um, then maybe that wasn't, it was more of an annoying blip for many people than anything else. But for those who did, I think, take that as a forced opportunity to check in. And then, especially if the answers led to some changes, then it was a massive turning point and a massive fork in the road, or a U-turn, or whatever it was, for many people, in a good way, which I think is good. But I think it is important for us to, all the time, to step back once in a while and be like, all right, what are we doing? Where am
Yeah.
I going?
Hmm.
How am I doing? How am I measuring that? Right? What is it? Dollars in the bank? Is that how I'm measuring my, my happiness?
Yeah.
Is it relationships? Is it love in my life? Is it fitness? Is it, like, what is it? And so I think it was a forced moment for many people, which was a benefit in lots of ways. Yeah, myself
So,
included. I think was good.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. So let's start digging into the Subconscious Academy. And
sure.
I want to put you in front of a bunch of kids at career day. And one of the
Yeah,
kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you synthesize your day job to make sense to their brains?
yeah. So I would say that I help people who are stuck, and who are in their own way, typically, and that is preventing them from achieving something or many things that they want to achieve, so they can become the person they want to become, right? And I help them get unstuck and get out of their way by first understanding what is happening, right? And that specifically means understanding the patterns that they are running. Speaking of patterns, right? So the patterns that they are running, typically in their mind, that are impacting their behavior, their emotions, their actions, and ultimately their results. So if they can understand why they're stuck, especially when these are things that are important to them, right? We all have these important things we want to do. We all have these goals. And yet we all know what it's like to feel stuck or to at least drag our feet, right? And it becomes challenging. So why are we stuck? And then more importantly, what can we do to get unstuck? And so a lot of those answers are found very much at the mental level, at the subconscious mind specifically. So that's what I help people do on an individual level and then a larger level as well. Yeah,
So
makes sense.
let's bring the camera up over the landscape here and begin to understand how you got here. What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
Yeah, I mean, I think the earliest memory I have is of having a direction. I was I got into scuba diving when I was a teenager, thanks to my father. He got me into that, and I mean, I came from landlocked Alberta, Canada. It's not like we had a bunch of tropical water nearby. We had cold mountain lakes, but I got into scuba diving, and so I got certified. I think when I was 13, if I recall, maybe 14. And so I was like, oh, this is the best. Like, I just want to go swim with dolphins in the Caribbean or whatever. So my focus back then was to be a marine biologist, again, some landlocked Canadian kid. And that carried with me for a while. I went to my first degree. When I started in college, I was in zoology. And I was going to go specialize. I was going to move to the West Coast and get into marine biology. And after a couple of years of zoology, I realized that, as I was listening to my professor, whose specialty was on like the snail brain, he was just like like all depth, no breadth, and that was his life. He spent decades learning about the snail. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need more breadth. Like, and I kind of realized then, and I was, you don't know anything when you're 20 or whatever, and so, but I realized, what? I can still go swim with dolphins and do all the fun things that I associated to that career by, do it in my free time or, go and make some money and go on a holiday and do these things. I don't necessarily have to devote my life to it. And so that sent me on a shift. So I got away from that. And concurrent to that, I took a year off college and I went and traveled a ton. And that really opened my eyes to the world. And there's no greater education than getting out of your country or even at least your city.
Uh-huh,
Get out wherever you can, right?
uh-huh, for
uh,
sure.
and so I traveled a ton, and that put me on a more of an international path. And then ultimately I went and worked for the United Nations for 10 years, because I kind of continued that global path. I wanted to go have an impact on a global scale. um, I'm going well beyond your question here, but
Oh no, I love it.
uh,
You're hitting a lot
yeah.
of dominoes.
Yeah, and well, I skipped a step. I changed from zoology and I went into psychology because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, let me do something that at least feels more specific. So my first degree was in psychology, but I was like, I don't really want to be a therapist or whatever. That wasn't my vibe at the time, and so that's when I went traveled. And when after I went travel, it's like, oh, let me do something global. Like, forget this one-on-one stuff. Let me go and like try to have a positive impact on a big scale. And so I did that mostly in Africa for about 10 years, did a lot of conflict resolution and peace building stuff. And um, the upshot from that is I discovered and learned it's really, really hard to see the impact of your work when you are one small cog in a huge organization that is, embroiled in a national, if not regional, peace building initiative. Like, it's really hard to see that you're making a difference, and it's tough work. And so after about 10 years I was like, I need to go back to a one-on-one level. And so that's what I did. I retrained, kind of built on my psychology stuff, and I retrained as a coach and as a hypnotherapist, and got back into one-on-one work and more training work in general. So um yeah, so that's a good chunk of the
Yeah,
story,
that's the
if that's
overview.
helpful.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah,
huge. So I'm
yeah.
curious in the work that you're doing right now of helping unlock that potential and helping people get around obstacles. Did that happen for you? Did you have a eureka moment that allowed you to get to this point to do this for others?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I would say, I mean, yes. I don't think I have. I think I don't have a pivotal, like this was the time kind of moment, and I think part of that is, uh, I think it's a good thing in lots of ways, because I think for many people that is often like a rock bottom kind of moment. It doesn't have to be, but for many people, it's like they hit threshold, right? They're like, oh, my life was falling apart or all this, and then I was like, no more, and I turned it around, and um, I haven't. I've been very fortunate to not have these huge kind of rock bottom moments in my life. Instead, it's been more of a process of maybe introspection and self reflection and driven, where I'm trying to really find out, well, what is happiness, and how, like, what is fulfillment, kind of those questions I was mentioning earlier, and like how do we get there, how do we figure it out? I mean, these are big questions as we got, that we are all, if we're not self anesthetizing and distracting, or we connect to once in a while. And so as I went through my own kind of coaching and hypnotherapy training and all that, I definitely did a ton of inner work to answer those questions for myself the best way possible. And everyone has their own answers, and they come about, and they get to them in their own way. But I've had I'm a very different person, as I was, compared to what I was when I was 25. And maybe that's just stating the obvious, um, but personal growth doesn't just automatically happen. It's not just a function of time. That's part of it, hopefully, as we gather life experience and learn from it. But going back to the idea of patterns, it's really easy to spend years, if not decades, and repeat the same patterns. And you get older, but you don't necessarily get wiser. So
Yeah.
I try to be proactive and architecting a life that is meaningful for me, consistently. So yeah,
What I find fascinating about what you're doing is that, doing the same thing over and over again is a conscious thing that we do. There could be
mm,
there could be subconscious underpinnings, but so much of what we do and how we react, our fears, our elations, are all subconscious. And it's so
yeah,
hard because it's buried beneath this oceanic crest of what we're actually experiencing, but there's these things that are pulling us all the time. And it's
yeah,
like, I think we all need to have some level of coaching to get to that point so that we can get over those fears and those things that ultimately inhibit us.
correct. Yeah, and I think it's important to, like, even the way you framed it is, um, like, it sounds demoralizing. It sounds like, oh my God, like it's such a titanic struggle, right? And it can be, but also there are small things that you can do to make that challenge not as challenging, right?
Right.
And part of it, I mean, it honestly, it just starts with awareness. It starts with a good understanding of what you just described, which many people don't have. Going back to the idea of, explaining what to do to the 13-year-old, most 13-year-olds don't even think about the idea of getting in their own way, or they don't stop to think, like, why is it hard for me? Why am I my own worst enemy sometimes? Like, why do I self-sabotage, if they even have a concept of what that is, right?
Yeah.
And and many adults don't either. They don't often think about what the issue is. And the answer that society typically provides is more strategy, right? If you want to get in shape, well, you just need a new gym, a new trainer, a new regime, a new diet, a new pair of shoes, or like those are all like mechanics. Okay. Are those helpful? Yeah, for sure, to a point. But I mean, the people that are not in shape, to use that example, is it because they don't have the right pair of shoes and the right gym and the right workout? Is it so hard these days to find like the right thing to eat on the internet? It's like, no.
Right.
So what's going on? It's not strategy, right? It's some strategy. You need some strategy. If you're running, Tony Robbins uses the example of, like, if you're running east looking for a sunset, like, you're screwed. So
Right.
yeah, you need some strategy, but the vast majority of the reasons why people are not achieving what they want to achieve is because there's other issues going on, right? Under this umbrella of mindset and psychology and so forth. And so that is at a subconscious level, and people are not aware of that. They're not consciously aware of it. And the other negative part of it is that people that are then hard on themselves. They think, God, like, I'm so lazy. Like, why am I such a God? I need to get my act together,
Hmm.
right? I'm like, oh, I need to, like, and so self-flagellate and beat on themselves and feel bad and feel guilty, especially when the world is telling them you should look like this and achieve this and be this and so forth. And it's hard for people to feel good about themselves. And so if they can understand, hey, there are there are reasons why you get in your own way, and just understanding that mechanism is a big step towards making it easier. And then there's also some things that you can do that can turn things around. So you can get out of your own way. So you can make sure you're fighting yourself less, right? Maybe give yourself a fighting chance to achieve what you want to achieve.
And one way I think of a good force in your life that can allow you to do that would be those people that in your life that are inspirational, maybe heroic, so to speak.
Yeah.
Who has that been for you? Who's been an inspirational force that's allowed you to navigate from your beginnings to the UN to right now to what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, different people at different phases, but the one that was most prominent as I made that shift from the UN but into personal development. I mentioned Tony Robbins. That was probably the biggest one, and um, Tony Robbins is the he's the one of the pioneers of the coaching industry, and he's not for everyone. Some people think he's too much, too loud, too everything, and that's fine, right? For me, it was Tony Robbins and many people around him. Some people need Oprah or the Dalai Lama or whatever, like whatever whatever your source of inspiration and whatever the style of messaging is that resonates with you is great. But I really liked Tony Robbins' work. I think he does a great job of distilling um, ideas and concepts that aren't necessarily his, and he'll tell you as much. He's like, yeah, this is what so and so says, and here's how it works, and he'll like distill it and make it easier for you to understand and apply. And so I did a lot of work with him. I actually was a coach for him for a chunk of time, and he really helped equip me with the toolbox that I have today in many ways. And and the confidence to know when you do coach training with him to become one of his coaches, the mantra is you need to learn the skills so that you can coach anyone, anywhere, anytime. And that's what I learned. And I had this massive caseload of clients that was coaching dozens of people across all sectors, whether they're tennis players or stay-at-home moms or retired grandparents or whatever it was. You'd find the commonalities. You'd find the as much as unique as we all are, we all have the same kind of challenges. And once you understand what those are and how to deal with them, how to support people through them, and it becomes easier. So anyway, so Tony Robbins was a huge influence. My father in lots of ways as well. He has a background in hypnotherapy as well. The current work that I'm doing in Subconscious Academy, I do jointly with him, which is cool. So that's pretty special.
Yeah,
He's turning 80 pretty soon, so it's cool that I get to work with him and bounce ideas off him and learn from him. And so, yeah,
it's wonderful. So the one thing about the work that you're doing is you're dealing with the human condition, and it can get murky, it can get
yeah,
dark, it can get difficult. How do you protect yourself or stay grounded and continue to be hopeful and give people pieces that will change their lives? What is that energy for you every day when you wake up? To not only do it for them, but to do it for yourself, take care of your
yeah,
soul.
yeah. Good question. I remember in one of my first hypnotherapy trainings, they would say, look, when you are doing a session with someone, and the expression was, you need to stay behind your eyeballs. I was like, what does that mean? But it just means like, it's especially when you're doing trance work and you're kind of using hypnotic language and you're, you know, deepening someone into this relaxed state and it's getting, you can just get lost, right? You can just like, and you're feeling what they're feeling, whether it's good or bad or scary. And you're, it's bringing you to tears and all these things. And sometimes that's okay, but you need to be aware of that and careful of that because you can get lost into it and it can be very emotionally draining or supercharging. Like oftentimes you'd leave a session, you just be like, oh, right on fire because it was very energizing, but that can also be very fatiguing overall. So I try to stay behind my eyeballs. I remember that expression. It just means like, be there, but also see yourself there, right? You almost need to remove a layer and still see yourself doing the good work, but recognize that, um, don't be in their story. Hear it and support it and so forth, but don't live it with them, right? So that's one piece. And then, I do a lot of kind of just like energy clearing a little bit, right? Just like, what, right? There's no magic to it, but just like kind of
Yeah.
get rid of it. But when I am working with people, I very much treat myself as a, a conduit, if you will, or as a vessel. And I don't say that from any kind of religious perspective or anything, but more just like my role is not, I'm not the savior. I'm not the person coming in to fix the person. I'm not doing any of that. I have a firm belief that people are not broken. They have the ability to get whatever insight they need, to learn what they need. And if I just put myself in a position where I can hopefully help them get what they need, whether that's an insight, whether it's just space to reflect, maybe it's just asking them a question that they need to consider, maybe it's guidance, maybe whatever it might be. And so I kind of open myself up to that and let whatever come. And I know, and it also takes a lot of pressure off you as a practitioner. If you go into it thinking like, oh gosh, I better be able to fix this broken person. It's like, well, that's not how it works, right? So I think that's my approach, and it helps me stay grounded. Yeah, great question though, Joe.
Yeah, you bet. So let me ask you this. If you take the camera up a little bit more and let's get into a time machine or let's get into a dream and you run into your 18-year-old self and you walk in the room right now at your age where you're
Hmm.
at exactly right now and there's a film projector. You click play and a 60-second highlight reel of your life comes up. Is that young version of you going to believe?
Probably not. No. I mean, even my friends and family and peers, I think, don't believe the life that, that I've lived, because I've actually I've lived in many countries. I've done many things. I've been very fortunate, very blessed to have the experiences I've had. So much so that I have a 7-year-old daughter, and so I want to be around for as long as possible, healthy and all these things for her and for my wife, of course, as well. But those obvious factors aside, I just turned 50. I've packed a ton in my 50 years, and I hope to be around along, many, many more decades. But I feel like, you know what, yeah, I've done a lot. So my 18-year-old self probably would be like, he would have to like get out a piece of paper and be like, so, and then you moved where?
Yeah.
And you did what? Um, I met I after I returned to Canada from working for the UN for many years. I'd just gone back to Canada. I was like, okay, I'll resettle in Vancouver, and I just started up a hypnotherapy practice there for a while, um, and then I met my wife. I met her in Fiji, and she was living in San Francisco, and so then I moved to San Francisco. And so before moving to Portugal, my last many years were living in San Francisco and working in the Bay Area, and then I ended up working at Apple for 7 years, doing leadership training and coaching and all this kind of work. Also had a hypnotherapy practice in San Francisco, so I was doing all that. Also had my own coaching clients. I was doing all these fun Bay Area things. I mean, the Bay Area is a crazy place.
Yeah.
And not lots of unsavory and stressful parts to it, but as an example, just the chunk of time that I was able to live there, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, where you drive by, if you've never been to San Francisco,
Yeah.
you go by and it's like, oh look, it's Facebook, and oh, it's Google, and it's YouTube and Uber, and it's just
Yeah.
like, what is happening here? And now
Uh-huh.
it's all AI stuff, of course, right? It's all just like, the hub of the world, in so many ways. So,
It certainly is.
and so yeah, I've had a very lucky journey, and um, but just also just feel like I'm getting started. Um, as I said, I turned 50, but I still feel like I'm that 22-year-old, like a smarter 22-year-old, but a 22
Right.
year old who's still trying to figure it all out
For
and
sure.
soak it all up. Yeah.
So with this crossroads here with this question, Ryan, I want to know everyone has a perception of you. Family,
Mm.
friends, clients, everyone in the business world, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah, I think I am. I think I'm a very caring person. I'm also someone who is prone to I would love to feel like I'm more carefree and easygoing and laissez-faire as I am. Um, but I'm someone who's still my opportunity for growth is consistently to let go and let it be easy and trust the process. And sometimes that's hard to reconcile with also being growth oriented and driven. And, you want to, I believe that at our core, we are meant to evolve and expand and grow and learn new things and to make progress because that's kind of what makes us happy, right? We're like a tree. We're either growing or we're dying. There's no in between. We can try to chill, for a chunk of time, but we need to grow. And so I'm always trying to grow, but I'm also trying to like chill a little bit. And so I think I'm someone who is constantly dancing with those two forces. Sometimes I do it well, and I'm like, yeah, it's all good. And sometimes I'm. My dad would say, "Don't push the river." So sometimes I'm definitely like pushing the river, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I know.
that's what
Well,
I'd
I'm a
say.
Libra, so I feel those scales, the balancing act.
Yeah,
Who's the ideal client? Anyone out there that's listening, who should be reaching out to you for the Subconscious Academy? Who's ideal?
yeah. We're doing a lot of work with solo entrepreneurs and small business owners. Only because I mean, there is no restriction, right? Like anyone who is getting in their own way and is looking for some of that alignment instead of resistance, right, can benefit from this kind of work. But if we were to niche down and focus on a group, it's those people who are in the hustle and in the grind, especially because those are the people where you can't take a day off if you're running your own business, right? If you're running your own show, okay. If you're punching the clock at whatever job, you still need to perform, obviously, to a level, but you still have a paycheck coming in unless you do something egregiously horrible. And so there's less pressure in some ways. But for the people they need to be self-driven. They need to wake up. They need to put in a good chunk of work. They need to have the vision and overcome the barriers and do all those things. These are the people who know what it's like to feel pressure, right? They're trying to build, they're trying to scale, they're trying to make it happen. People are doubting them. There's money pressure. There's a spouse who's maybe like, when's it going to happen? Like all those sort of things. So these people, especially, I'm passionate about because I've also been that person at times. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur now as well. So I also know what that's like. So I have a passion for those people as well because there are some people are so smart. There's so many people out there who are so smart, so many talents, right? So much are just trying to contribute so much value and positivity to the world through some service or product or whatever it is. But the entrepreneurial journey is so hard. It's
Mhm.
so hard. So many people have just not made it, right? And then the upshot of that is then they've got to go to the maybe go get another 9 to 5 or something that doesn't lift them up, something that doesn't fill them up, right? So if I can help any of those people stay doing what they want to be doing and achieve, right? Achieve it by trying to remove some of that resistance, mitigate the self-sabotage, help them stay hungry, and not get mired in the many common obstacles that we all face. And that's huge. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. So I got to know if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history, where are you going? What do you want to see with your own eyes?
Mm. It's funny. I think we have such a romanticized view of history
Yeah.
because, you know, first of all, we're all making it up. It's all just distilled from whatever texts and stories passed down, right? Or, now you see something on HBO and you're like, oh yeah, like I'm sure back in those days it was great. And like just the lack of sanitation and stuff at so many of these, it's like it would just be horrible.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I mean, to go back to a time in ancient Greece where all the big thinkers were. I mean, I think that would be fascinating. From a coaching and kind of psychologist perspective, to go back and hear what Aristotle and Plato and all these kind of big thinkers were saying, right? And what women were there but weren't being heard.
Yeah.
We never hear about
Yeah.
that. Like, surely there are other perspectives than these handful of old Greeks.
Yep,
Like where were they?
totally.
So times like that, I think, to get some accurate measure of where we were back then, and to connect to some of the genesis of our current thinking. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, anywhere, anytime.
yeah,
I'd go back 60 years, whatever, time
yeah,
before I was alive.
yeah. It would be
Anytime.
fascinating. Yeah, totally.
Anytime.
So subconsciousacademy.com. I will get links in the show notes. Ryan, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. It's been great. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Joe. Thanks for your time. Yeah,
You
all the
bet.
best.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same.